to another Fusion Friday. My name is Phil Brown. This week, we're going to talk about how you can utilize ProdSmart to get out of those spreadsheets and get into an actual digital platform that allows you to track your jobs on the floor, your employees, as well as see if whether or not your actual parts are making you money or costing you money. This week, I have with me is Umair. He comes from our team. He's another Fusion tech like myself and has been diving in and trying to tackle this ProdSmart thing that Autodesk has recently purchased. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Umair and let him dive into ProdSmart and see what we can do with it.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Thanks, Phil. Yep, like Phil was saying, we are kind of new to the product and we're excited for all our Fusion users to kind of test it out, see how it works for your small businesses or even large businesses. And what we typically want to remind people is the fact that, it's usually very complicated and very time consuming to integrate an ERP system, especially if you are a business with maybe about 10 employees. And it doesn't really, make sense or isn't worth your while. So that's why we have this product, and we want to showcase how it kind of really plays well with Fusion and also can integrate into other existing products as well. So without further ado, let me go ahead and share my screen here and we can bring it up. And there we go. You should see ProdSmart in here. So as you can see, this is kind of like the welcome page to ProdSmart. This is your dashboard. So if you are a manager or shop floor manager or anyone who's kind of more working on the back end of the operations in your shop, you will probably be working in this portion of the software. And it's a very clean, as you can see, it's very clean. There's not a lot of whole buttons and the UI is really clean, so I like that about it. And the time it takes to actually learn the software and start implementing is also very, very fast. You're not looking at any sort of crazy 2-month time interval here. We typically get customers up and running within the first 2 weeks. You can start tracking your jobs. So let's see, Phil, what do you think? What should we kind of show everybody how, where ProdSmart can fit into their workflow?
Yeah, you know what? Honestly, the big thing that we always get questions about when it goes ERP system versus, using some spreadsheets is why don't we just walk through a simple process like maybe my customer wants me to quote a couple of parts and then give them an estimate on what it's going to take, and then maybe I get issued a PO to make those parts.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, sure. Let's go ahead and jump into that. So in order to actually create a quote, so some key elements before I jump in, just want to remind everybody, kind of runs off of just any sort of spreadsheet workflow. It's just a more digitized format of it. So you have things like your products in here, your machines in here, and you're basically adding a lot of that data into ProdSmart, right? So in order to create a quote, you leverage all of that data. So I'm going to go into the sales orders here, and this is where my quotes and my client list and my shipping procedures, all of these elements live, right? So I'm going to go ahead and create a new quote for us. As you can see, I kind of been playing around with a few things here. So I'm going to go ahead and start a new quote that we want to send to a customer, right? So again, you can use any sort of existing nomenclature that you have at the company right now. You do not have to create a whole set of new quotes or anything. You can go ahead and just use your own PO numbers and whatever you'd like. So let me go ahead and throw up some random numbers in here. Next, I'm going to go ahead and choose my client who I would like to send the quote out to. And this is all, like I said, all of that information can be pre-built here in our client list. I'm going to go ahead and throw that billing address in there as well, and the creation date for the actual quote. So that's going to autofill to today's date and time. As we go down the list here, a couple of things you can add, if there are special notes you want to send out to your customer in the quote, you can add them all in here. And then just a little bit of information regarding shipping. Now, again, none of this is actually required at setup time, but if you want to just make it easier, you can go ahead and set that up all in here. So for example, I can put in a 2-week shipping time. Requested date could be today. I'm just going to go ahead and set that up for right now. Okay. And the delivery address, again, as you can see, just kind of going off the client's delivery address. And now you put in all the products that you want to send in the quote. So this can be all of the products that are available in your product list right now. Or if it's not in your product list right now, you can also add it later on. It doesn't matter. We can just add it to the quote as we go.
So
let me go ahead.
Umair, let me stop you there real quick. So what you're saying is I got to add stuff to my product list. But seeing how I'm currently using spreadsheets, I can very quickly import those, right? There's a import tool from a spreadsheet into here.
Yep, exactly. So you can actually download the CSV template into your local computer, and then you can move out all of your spreadsheet data into that template and just do a mass import. So, like you're saying, Phil, if you have 100 plus products in your inventory or your product catalog, it takes almost no time, just a little bit of tweaking with the template, and we can mass import all that data in there. So you don't have to manually enter any of those individually. So I'm just going to keep completing the quote here. So I'll just put a basic, plate in here, how many how many the customer needs, put a unit price in there. So let's go with $250, right? As you can see, calculates the total cost. And then and you can also keep adding more and more and more products. So if you are sending a quote to a customer with multiple line items, you can definitely do that in here as well, right? So you get a little summary, and then after you're done, just go ahead and hit save quote. And now my quote is available in my list of quotes that I have here, right? So at any time, so like you're saying, so let's keep walking with the process, right? So like you send a quote out, customer likes a quote, they send you a PO, right? So you can now make your quote in an actual sales order to publish onto your production floor. So let me go ahead and do that. I'm going to go back into that quote. And as you can see here, towards the bottom, now I have the create sales order option. I'm going to create my sales order. And there's a little bit more information that I can add in here at this point if I needed to, but everything looks good. I can then go ahead and also, now that we actually have a sales order in place and we're ready to submit that onto the production floor, I'm going to go ahead and say save and create production orders. And at this junction, you can now decide, hey, do you want to split up this PO by any chance into multiple different shipping dates? Because who knows, maybe there might be some items in here that have longer lead times. They can't all go out the door at the same time, right? So there could be complications, but we can adjust for that by doing this process here, splitting it all up or keeping them combined. So just for ease of use for today, we'll just confirm that it's all just under one shipping date. And as you can see here, gives you your due date. Just again, another quick summary on exactly what the parameters are for the production order. You can also decide to activate the production order right now. So kind of, it even gives you the opportunity to kind of get ahead of a lot of the stuff that's coming down the pipeline. You may not want your workers to start actively working on it and tracking it, so you don't have to make it active as yet. But you can kind of front load all that work. As a manager, I'm sure that would be very helpful to a lot of people. So I'm going to go ahead and actually active this because it could be a hot job, right? We want to get somebody working on it right now. So I'm going to go ahead and say active. I'm going to create the production order. So just like that, with a couple of clicks, now if I go into my production orders list, I should be able to see that quote right there being active in my production order list, and I have people, and I give my shop floor workers the ability to actually start working on it.
Awesome. So
It's
with that, real quick there, Umair, not to cut you off, but so your video is actually over where that active button is. Do you mind showing them that active button at the line item above it? I know it looks like a little power button, that green button to be able to activate or not.
Yep.
Can you go up one row above that? So your camera is actually sitting right on top of that, right there. So that's where you can activate it also after the fact, right?
Exactly. Yes. If you didn't activate it, and now a week after, it's something you want to tell your shop floor workers to start working on it, you can activate it at that time as well. Yep.
Awesome.
Exactly.
So I'm also noticing, though, there looks to be like a little barcode one. I'm assuming that I can create barcodes and bins to track these as well, correct?
Yes, 100%. You can create header sheets for all of your different products. You can create header sheets for your workers. So even your workers, if you just want to give them a little barcode tag that they can sign in and sign out of a production order, you could also build them custom barcode tags.
Awesome, man. One last question before I let you continue on. Do I have to create a quote in order to create a actual production order? Let's say somebody walks in off the street and they're just like, hey, man, this part broke on my trailer. I just need you to make this bracket real quick. You can always create just a production order, right?
100%. That's a good question, Phil. Yeah, like as you can see this big blue button up here, I can simply skip step number 1, step number 2 with quotes and sales orders and jump right into production orders. So I can just click on add production order, and here we go. I can now get a new template to create that new production order. I'm kind of glad you brought me here because this is another good place, a little flex, I would say, where we kind of talk about where does Fusion 360 fit into this whole process, right? You are a job shop. You are using Fusion 360 on your floor. Why not leverage this software to make the whole job tracking system a lot easier? As far as I know, there isn't any other product right now on the shop, in the shop world that has direct integration with any MES software. So that's where ProdSmart has a really good advantage. So for example, if I want to quickly create a production order, give it a job number, give it a start date, a due date, and then I can just go ahead and say import from Fusion. As you can see here, I just have to select which team the data is living in. I have a little folder right here that says ProdSmart. And then inside of that folder where my file lives, I can then go ahead and bring in all of the different components. So it's a really quick and easy way to move product information from Fusion to ProdSmart to make that whole job tracking system a lot easier to do.
Awesome. So what you're telling me is if I have multiple teams because of multiple facilities, I can actually pull those files in, even though the teams aren't technically local to me?
Oh, yes, 100%.
Awesome. Cool. So I guess that leads us into our next question, though, is so you've just basically told everybody that we need to make this part, right? So how do we know where that part's going to go or what's going to happen with that part?
Yeah, for sure. Let's take a look at that too. So for example, let's just say I go ahead and bring in that part, right? I'm going to say, yeah, I'm going to call it a basic plate right here, right? This pulls all, like I said, pulls all the information from Fusion. I'm going to go ahead and say import, right? Well, it looks like I might already have it. So it's a good little error to kind of walk in and say, make sure you don't repeat anything, right? So I'm going to say base plate number 2. There we go. Just a quick little fix. I'm going to import it. Now that we've imported the part information, the name, and any sort of subcomponents or materials that are tied to the actual product, next step is associating a process template to it. Now, there's 2 ways you can kind of go about this. You can still create a product, you can still create a production order, and then you can later on assign certain specific operations to that job. If you don't want to take the time later on to do it, you could simply build up a bunch of different custom process templates so that you can associate it right when you create the job. And I have to tell you, this is probably the most easiest and convenient way to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and say associate a process template. As you can see here, I have a few different ones I've kind of been playing around with, but this is just to give you an idea. Like I can create a set of operations that say, first I'm going to route the pieces of wood from my sheet. Then I'm going to move to the sanding stage, and then I'm going to go to the assemble stage, right? So it's just kind of, I like to think of ProdSmart as a micro level tracking system and a macro level tracking system, right? So really depending on what you want your workers or what you want your operations team to track, you can then go ahead and set up your operations to do that, right? So in our case, for example, I'm really not interested in finding out exactly how much time he took for op 1. I don't care how much time he took for op 2. I don't care machine setup. I just want to know, wait, but when the part went to the machine, when did it come out, and when was it measured, and when is it ready to, and how long it took to get on a pallet and ready to ship. So I'm just going to do one very generic one right here, but you can kind of see the difference, right? A very itemized one and a very generic one. So I'm going to select the generic one. I'm going to hit save. And what I've done now is I've basically told my production here so that when I release the job to the floor, and we'll take a look here in just a little bit how somebody on the floor would see this particular process, right? I'm going to go ahead and say, for example, how many of that quantity I need. Maybe we need to make 5, right? I'm going to say 5. And something I kind of glossed over here is the predicted duration. So if you quoted a certain amount of hours to a customer and told them that, hey, this whole job is going to take about 10 hours, that's where I'm going to put the 10 hours in there. Because what happens is now when the worker clocks in to actually produce the parts, they have kind of a benchmark that they can track themselves against. So they say, well, I have 10 hours quoted for this part. This is currently where I'm sitting at, right? So there's a lot of leeway to give you even in process timing. There's a few more things here that I just need to fill out. Again, like I said, you can add more products to the production order. You can make the production order active. So a lot of these things that we kind of went previously to. Another cool feature I like about it is you can assign a certain production order to a certain set of people too. For example, if you wanted this production order to be specifically given to your welding crew, then they can be, they're the only ones who can punch into the job. Maybe it was only your machinist, then only your machinist can punch into the job, right? So it makes it a lot easier for people downstream.
Well, that
So I'm
seems
going to go ahead and hit save
extremely
production.
that seems extremely easy there. So what you're telling me is, in theory, I would always want to use the least amount that it cost me kind of grouping of people. So in theory, I could actually put this where only my guys that do 3-axis have access versus my 5-axis guys doing a 3-axis part or things of
100%.
that nature, right?
Yes, yes. And you can get, like I said, Phil, you can get very granular with it. So just to kind of answer that, so I'm not going to fill this all out because I hope you guys kind of understood what it takes to make that production order. But kind of talking more towards what you were saying, Phil, if I go back into the worker area right here, you'll notice that you can group them as far as their skills too. So for example, if you had let's just say you had a welder that was certified to, weld a certain specific type of metal or a strategy, then you can assign that job to only that welder based on their skill, right? Because you can also then track what is their dollar per hour worth and all that sort of information.
Awesome. I love it. So obviously at this point, we didn't create that order because we already have orders in.
We
Can you
have a
give
bunch of
me,
orders.
yeah, can you give me a real life scenario? How fast would it take you to make a job in here? Can you just do that real quick so we could see it?
Of course, yeah. So let me go ahead and I'll go back into the production order. I'm going to say add a production order. And let's run through that same process. I'm just going to say job dash, just a generic name. When do I want to start it? Hey, it's a hot job. I'm going to start it right today. Ooh, it's also like 12 o'clock on Friday, so I don't know how many people are on the shop floor right now. But let's just say I want to start it right now. It's due by, let's just say Wednesday at 5. Okay. Oops, sorry. Meant to say 5 p.m., not a.m. Put in the predicted hours. Like I said, maybe let's just say we told the customer it was going to take 5 hours. I can either import it from Fusion like you guys just saw me do it, or if it's in my product list and it's just a repeat order, it's even easier just to kind of go grab it. So as you can see here, I have that basic plate in here. Go and grab it, say 2 of them. Again, select the workers. Maybe I want to give it to just my machinist, or I can even just give it to all of them. Mark it as active, and there we go. Probably what, 30 seconds? Not even.
That was
because I was talking.
That was extremely fast. So with that being said, obviously we're starting to see more of why the nitty gritty stuff that comes in here once you pre-set up the software. But presumably now, if we're using certain groups of people, certain machines, and things set with the routing, is there reports in here that I could pull to see if I'm actually profitable or what my machine capacity is?
Yes, exactly. You can definitely pull a lot of different types of reports inside of ProdSmart. These are all the different varieties that you can pull. Now, remember, I don't really have a lot of data in here that I'm tracking as of right now, but I'll just kind of show you how you can build out a report. So, for example, you might not see any data, but let me actually show you what the report will look like. So let's just say I wanted to track maybe machine work time, and I can choose which machine, right? So let's just say, for example, my UMC 750. Usually that's, pretty busy. I can select that, the date, so I can even just kind of do a relative for maybe the last 24 hours. How much has the UMC been working for the last 24 hours? And all I have to do at that point is go ahead and say generate report. Now, if I had any data, it should pop up, but like I said, I might not have much data in here. So it didn't really pop up anything, but that's honestly as easy as making the report goes. You can choose from a variety of all these different types of uh, categories. And something that I really like about this is, let's just say that that's a report that you keep pulling pretty regularly. So for example, you wanted to check your inventory movements for a specific product, and you wanted to get a weekly report on what the actual count number is. I can now go ahead and just say, hey, I want to schedule that report. So I can say, I would like to get an idea for that specific product, how much of that inventory I have left. So that's something I really like about the whole automated side of ProdSmart.
Awesome. So now that we've looked at this, and obviously this menu can be a little intimidating, and we are looking at it from the idea of a data entry position, maybe a production controller, a supervisor, things of that nature. But what does this honestly look like for the guys on the floor, right? Like they're not going to be in here, are they?
They're not going to be in here, Phil. No, there's, like you said, there's a lot of information in here. And this is great for somebody who's just a manager, kind of getting a high level idea of what's happening on the floor today. They get their feed in here, they can see all that information, how many people are working. how many machines are working, right? So they can get a general idea. Really quick, I just wanted to also show you as far as, again, if you are a manager, you can just quickly go to the status of all your workers and you can see who's in the door today, who's not working, who's currently available, who's clocked into what project. So you have a good idea of understanding of what everyone's doing on the floor, right? But kind of like you're saying, this might be overwhelming to just this typical shop floor worker, right? So let's see what they see.
Wait a
I'm
minute.
gonna go.
I'm gonna pause you here real quick.
Okay, sure.
Who's that guy on the far right and what is he doing?
Phil Brown. You know what? We hired this guy, and he hasn't showed up for a single day of work. It's kind of weird. So I'm gonna definitely have to give him, find him.
Yeah, you know what? He's probably out making other kind of fusion videos or taking his 10-day vacation up front. But that's neat to see that we can fully see at the end of the day who's punched in, who's not punched in. It looks like even I could see machines, work centers, even what jobs they're kind of working on. That's quite nice at the end of the day to get a quick glance on that.
Oh yeah, 100%. Exactly. Like you were saying, it's not just the workers. You can even check out what machines are currently working. So as you can see here, majority of mine are available because, like I said, it's Friday afternoon. No one's running any of these, but yeah, you can definitely check. And what's also nice is it's not just about the green button, just seeing if it's working or not. You can even check to see how many more components have to be run through that particular machine to close out the job. So it's a lot of high level information that's really helpful when you're planning for the next week or even daily. Yep. So that being said, okay, so let me jump into the tablet mode, right? So I'm going to go ahead and select the tablet mode. Now, as far as the tablet view goes, you can download the tablet app. The app, actually, you can just basically sync your tablet to the ProdSmart app. But what happens is you can download this on your mobile device. You can download this on a tablet if you want to set up, like I said earlier, little kiosk station where you want somebody to punch in and punch out, even if it's by the door. You can download it on a tablet like that. Or again, you can just have it on somebody's computer. You can just have it on their computer so they can simply just punch in and punch out, right? So it's very accessible to a lot of folks. Now, as far as the layout goes, as you can see here, just kind of gives you a general time, what time it is, the date. And here's all of the different types of tasks. I like to call it inputs that a worker can give the main dashboard. So things like punching in and punching out. So again, this is just basically to say, hey, I'm in here for the day and I'm gone for the day. Then if you actually want to, track production, we'll run through this here very quickly about how would a worker go about their day using this. But as you can see, there's just a lot of information that they can use this app now to provide the main dashboard. So for example, things like your inventory move-in and move-outs. You can even add an inventory count to the app. Meaning, for example, let's just say that you're going to assign Phil Brown. He never shows up to work. Well, let's assign Phil Brown a quick task. We'll tell him that, hey, I need you to go into the back, go to the inventory warehouse, and grab the inventory count for all of these parts. All of that can be done inside of the app. All they would need to do is go into the inventory counting menu and then add the amount of numbers that they count, and they're on their way. So there's a lot of data that they can input with the app, right? So kind of segueing to how would somebody actually use this now? How would a worker leverage all of this information? So it's 12:20. Worker number 3 is going to be punching in. This is their punch clock. Again, like I said, they can use this with a barcode or they can just punch in their own worker number. I'm going to say okay. And now Eric is in. He's ready to start rolling. So now that he's punched in for the day, he's going to go into insert production. He's going to use that same number. He's going to hit okay. As you can see right now, what's going to prompt him to do is it's going to show him all of the active shipping orders, or basically all of the active production orders that can be worked on, right? So as you can see, I clicked on shipping, and this is all of the different production orders we have currently running. So we need Eric to get started on that quote job that we just produced, right? So I'm going to say I'm going to be working on that base plate. And also, again, this is where all of the different products under one line item would be. Select the product he's going to be working on, and then he's going to select which operation he's going to be working on. So remember earlier when we were setting this up, we made one just for milling all ops. So he's going to start tracking time, and now he's going to go into the machine area and he's going to start setting up his work, and he's going to program, cam, do everything that he needs on the CNC side. And we're actively tracking that data. Now, for the operations manager, if I jump back into my main menu here and just quickly run to my dashboard. I have just received information that I have a fourth person working, and I can also double check in my production records too, just to see if everyone is currently working. So yeah, so that's kind of how the general process would go for somebody trying to punch in and punch out of a job. Let's just say X amount of hours have now passed. Eric is ready to close out of that process. He's going to go back into insert production. He's going to punch in his name or number, sorry. Because ProdSmart already knew that Eric was actually working on the job, it's not going to make him go through the whole thing over again to select which production or which operation he's working on. All he has to do now is state how many parts or the quantities he made for that specific operation. He doesn't need to make all of them. Maybe he didn't make both plates. Maybe he just made the one plate. He can type in 1 or 2, whichever it is, and hit OK. He's going to confirm that's the number of units he made, and he's going to submit it. And that's it. It's easy as that. And now the next time, so let's just say, okay, worker number 4 now has to go in there and start inspecting it and making sure it's ready to ship. They can go back in to insert production. Worker number 4, hit OK. It's gonna bring up the screen where all of the active products are. Give me 1 second here while it's hanging up a little bit.
This is my favorite part of this because most people don't understand. Me and Umair actually work off hotspots, and it's very much about the speed of our internet. It's not necessarily the speed of the software as we work through this. In the meantime, though, while this loads, I'm going to go ahead and point out the fact that in the event you guys want to learn more information, get an actual live demonstration from Umair or myself, as well start your 14-day trial. There's actually a link down in the bio to click that and get it going. On top of that, during your 14 days, we're actually going to onboard you at no cost to get you guys up and going as soon and as quick as possible. But it looks like his internet came back up and we're good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this back over to him to walk through employee number 4.
No problem. So all I did was go ahead and now select that new shipping order again. I'm going to click on this guy. 2 to go. So as you can see here, even right here at the bottom, it actually states like, hey, you completed that op. There's no more that you need to do there. Now we're going to go on to the second op, right? So it's worker number 4 who's going to mic that thing up, make sure all the edges are deburred, and wrap it up and throw it in a box. So I'm going to say, click on that, and now we're actively tracking time for that as well. So again, this just becomes a repetition process as more and more workers keep adding data. And remember, you're going to have multiple people working on different things all across the shop. So it's just a nicer way of giving them the ability to put in all that information.
So if I understand that correctly, Umair, so it looks like, one, for my actual employees clocking in and clocking out for payroll, we have the ability to track that. But if I understand the inventory side of it too, is I could put a job in work and then go claim end mills, drill bits, different things out of my actual inventory and consume those as needed, and even keep track of those costs at the end of the day, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. You can definitely bring in your end mills, or hey, if your vendor gave you a nice little CSV sheet of all of your end mills or products that you purchased from them, you can directly import them into ProdSmart, then have an entire tool library inside of ProdSmart, kind of like you have on Fusion, and then track the inventory. So the next time, Phil Brown breaks the tool, she should be hitting negative on the inventory, right? So, and then at least that way down the line, now the manager will know that, hey, we've hit a critical limit on what the minimum inventory needs to be for that specific end mill. It's time to hit the reorder process.
Man, so that is just awesome that you could actually start to document much deeper than we've shown it here today. But I do believe we have a couple of webinars coming up. Again, with that link below, you guys can get registered or get your free trial. That being said, Umair, I think that's going to wrap it up for this week, and we're going to go ahead and push this back to everybody. That being said, as always on Friday, it's Fusion Friday. We always love you guys to come out and watch our content, and we always want to get comments, likes, and follows to continue that information as we go. With that being said, you guys have a good one, and hopefully you get rested up by Monday.
Bye, everybody.